don't waste your pain by hiding your scars, right? Like our pain has purpose for somebody else. And when we hide the pain, or when we try to hide the scars, rather, we begin to waste our pain. And so, one thing I love about God is that even though He forgives us, He gives us a clean slate. He heals our wounds. He don't remove the wounds, He heals them. So the scar is just a wound that's been healed. And He'll allow the scars to remain because that's the testament of our growth.
Welcome to the Mindset on Resilience podcast. I am your host, Daniel Truelove, and I am excited for the guest that we have today. As you know, we're all about building a more confident, resilient, and mentally strong community. And the guest that we have, I promise you all, I promise, he's going to do just that. He's a dynamic leader, inspiring speaker. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, but a 5-time author. He's also a certified recovery report specialist, trauma-informed certificate as well, has his bachelor's degree in communications, and I want to actually talk about my personal experience. I had the opportunity to attend a conference that he did called Let's Unpack, and it was one of the most transformational experiences that I've ever had the opportunity to sit in, and I can't wait for us to be able to talk about it. It's none other than our guest for you all today, which is Jerrod Smith. How you doing, my guy?
Man, I'm doing pretty good, man. I appreciate such the warm welcome.
Hey, listen, I ain't telling you lies. Everything that I spoke about was, was what you're doing. So, the fact that you're doing amazing things allows for, the welcome to be what it is.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here today. Let's take a deep dive. I came ready. I came loaded.
Let's unpack. Let's do it. So I want to start. I want to start here because I want to start with the experience that I had, which is called Let's Unpack, and where we'll talk about how you got to the space to where you knew what unpacking was, or what this even is all about. But you had an event, and it was called Let's Unpack. And then one of the things I want to talk about was some people that came to the event and they had no plans on sharing information, but you heard that person after person. I wasn't going to share this, but now I feel led to share this. What is unpacking, and why is unpacking even important?
My personal experience. Um, I had dealt with some pain, some childhood trauma, probably around 11, 12 years old. And at the time, I vowed never to talk about how I was feeling and never to let anybody see me in this vulnerable state, right? This state that looks like, I'm weak and I'm broken. And so I began to cover all that up with a hardened exterior, right? Um, and in the process of time, I began to be closed off to conversations around my pain and my hurts. And I grew up that way, and it was years and years and years where there was things going on the inside of me that was causing problems on the outside of me, but I never talked about it, never discussed it. And so Let's Unpack actually came about when I got connected to a mentor. I actually work with him. His name is Chaplain Dr. Frederick Woods. And I was going through a very troubling time at the time of my life. And what he did was, through some wisdom, he began to invite me out to breakfast once a week. And he wasn't trying to counsel me. He didn't say we were meeting up here to take some deep dive emotionally, anything like that. He just said, "Hey, meet me for breakfast." And through meeting him on a consistent basis, we began to talk. And through that conversation, I began to open up about some things that had took place in my childhood, my family dynamic, my father relationship, et cetera, et cetera. And through this process, I began to get a little lighter. My load began to get a little lighter, and I began to get a little more clarity about life and about decisions that I need to make to move on. And what I was doing was I was unpacking, and I didn't even know it. And because he was my mentor and we began to spend time together, he could kind of see himself inside of me, and he began to tell me about different avenues that I could move in life that would be both beneficial for my life. So from then on, I got a couple of certifications, and he asked me one day, this is a couple years later, if I wanted to help him in his private practice. And I was like, yeah. And he basically gave me the opportunity to come under his tutelage and learn about how I could best serve, becoming a mental health um, professional, basically. And so, I've been working in his private practice, working at a 9-month treatment center where I counsel with men for 7 months and giving them the opportunity to learn about unpacking and learning having a safe space to communicate some things that they may have never told anybody, right? And so this is where the idea of creating this event to create a safe space where people can actually talk about things that have been very troubling to their lives, and with some resources and education provided, actually can start working towards mending and healing.
I think that's amazing because, and what he's sharing with you all right now, I'm a living, testimony that it did exactly that from people from different walks of life. I'm talking when I say different walks of life, I'm talking about different walks of life. Without giving specific information out there, you got people that were younger that would say, "Hey, this is the first time that I've ever shared this information," and came and shared some, they came and unpacked older lady, older man. Um, this is the first time that I'm sharing. As a matter of fact, I don't even know why I'm sharing this, but I feel like I have to share this. And they're just sitting there and unpacking, and um, man, it was just a beautiful sight to see. And so you came from being at this, working through this private practice, helping people unpack. Well, first of all, you're doing it yourself, and then helping others to do the same thing, and then you created this event that allows other people to experience this as well. Now, talk to me about your own personal journey of unpacking, like what led to the necessity to you having to do this, and what did you learn from those mentoring sessions that you were having with the gentleman that you mentioned?
When I was pretty young, my family, my parents split. Mom had She didn't deal with that process well. Um, Ended up being in a state of depression and hospitalized in a mental hospital for a couple of years, in my teenage years. And I kind of moved around with my father and the woman he was dating at the time, and just polar dynamics, going from one type of environment to a whole different type of environment. Experience like culture shock and getting involved. Start um, failing school, fighting, skipping, drinking, smoking, fighting, uh, hustling, doing all these different things, really just trying to find myself and my identity, but running away from the pains that I was experiencing, trying to numb it, trying to find a solution for my pain through my identity, through relationships and sex, through drugs, whatever the case may be. So, got into a lot of trouble when I was young. Ended up getting incarcerated by the age of 21 from something I did when I was 19, and ended up having to serve 5 years incarcerated. And the great thing about being incarcerated, if there's anything great about it, that's the place where I began to develop a relationship with God. And through that relationship and some of the people that were uh, helping me gain an understanding of who He was, the situation, the 5 years kind of went by pretty fast, and it really wasn't. I'm not saying it wasn't hard, but it was kind of like the school of hard knocks. It was like I learned a whole lot while I was there, and but one thing did not happen. As much that did happen, I became a inmate leader, ministry leader, and a pastor in different cells, and a pastor in different prisons. I went to 6 different prisons in 5 years. And had some great opportunities and moments to connect with people. I've seen some awesome things take place, but I never really talked about anything that happened in my childhood. So that was kind of locked away in my heart. And then I go out. and eventually get married, have some kids and different stuff, but never really talk about anything that happened with me. And that started causing a friction in that relationship. That relationship ended up dissolving. There was just a separation, no real connection because there was things that I had not dealt with and it started to surface. And then once I come out of that relationship, get into another relationship in the same ordeal, same situation. And I believe this statement that what you don't defeat, you will repeat. Right. And so I continued to face the same issues over and over and over again. And I realized I was living in a cycle. And even though I went to school and college, I got a degree, when my life started spiraling out of control because of this breakup and then trying to gain and find an identity, I went and reverted back to what I knew. So I started getting back in trouble, started hustling and becoming a womanizer and doing all these different things. And it was really trying to run away from the pain that I knew was there the whole time, right? And a lot of times, just people in general, when we experience pain, we're running from that pain, and whatever we run to, running from that pain begins to shape our ideas about our life, ideas about relationships. It begins to introduce us into things that can cause us to numb. I say it like medication, like we all have taken headache medication, right? But the medication does not cure the headache. It just suppresses the signal that the body's trying to say. A lot of times when we get headaches, it's either we got exposed to something toxic or we are mineral deficient. And so a lot of times we are self-medicating with things and the signal is the problem. The signal is what's bothering us, trying to tell us that there's something wrong and you need to figure it out. And we run from that, or I ran from that for years and years and years, and I was causing way more damage than solutions, way more problems than solutions. And finally, after, and I don't even think I said to mention this at Let's Unpack, but I had caught some more cases, and I was facing 99 years. And I remember I got this case, and I had this lawyer, and I was still trying to hustle. I'm trying to pay off. I had a Lexus at the time. I'm trying to pay that off, and I'm trying to pay bills and do this and do that. And it's not working. And I got this lawyer. I'm trying to spend all this money on him. It's not working. And I could just see my life falling apart. And my own personal issue, I learned how to compartmentalize my life so well. I hurt so many people that the whole goal was to meet new people so I could introduce a version of myself that hasn't hurt them yet, if that makes sense. So I had spread my life so thin, and I was trying to wear daddy hat, student hat, worker hat, right? Coach hat. I was wearing all these different hustler hat. I was wearing all these different hats, compartmentalizing my life, and it was spreading so thin. And finally, when I caught that case, it was just like the the house of cards is falling and crumbling. And I just started praying, and it's so funny how we pray when we have problems, right? Like, Lord help. But I said this, I was like, I know what I did was wrong. I had caught basically a trafficking charge. I know what I did was wrong. And I was like, I'll go back to prison if I have to. But if it's your will, like show me what to do, you know. And he showed me he showed me some information about the court system that I did not know and how to navigate. So what I did was I fired my lawyer and I went into the courtroom and I had a script and I only said my script. I basically went in the courtroom. This is not legal advice, by the way, for anybody who's watching. But I went in and I said, I'm here to make a special appearance on the behalf of my trust. And what I learned about the courtroom, real quick, is that there's two different jurisdictions going on in the courtroom. There's the law of the land and the law of the sea. And the judge presides over the law of the sea. And before you cross over, um, when they say approach the bench, you're crossing over from land to sea. All right. It goes all the way back to our birth certificates. And when we're born, we're literally um, chattel, or literally the, how can I put it? We are the collateral to the United States debt, according to our birth certificate. So that's why we go from water, our mother's inside, right? When the water breaks, we go from water to land. and the judge's role is to get you back from land to sea. And everything in the court room is for taxation purposes, meaning it's a money machine. And anytime you sign a document in the courtroom, they take that document, it's called an affidavit. They take that affidavit and they actually collateralize it and make it a bond and then exchange that bond to the Federal Reserve. And so they get people to get plea agreements so you can sign that document so they can turn that document into money. It's crazy. But I found this out. And so when I went to court, I had me a little script and I said, I'm here to make a special appearance on behalf of my trust. And what that did was it did not allow the judge to get jurisdiction over me. And the way they get jurisdiction over us is when you say your name out loud. It's called a verbal signature. And so when they say Jerrod Smith approached the bench, they say, "What's your name?" And then when I say Jerrod Smith, that's their verbal signature to establish jurisdiction over us. So I didn't say that. And I said, I'm not signing anything and I'm not taking any financial obligation from the court. And so he got pissed off. He tried to embarrass me in front of everybody. Then he let everybody go in front of me, made me sit down and watch. And then at the end, he called me back up and we did the same thing over again. And finally, we postponed that. We met again. We postponed, met again. And the last time I showed up to court, the third time I was there, I said my little spiel. He looked at the DA and said, "Give that man whatever he wants," just like that. And I walked out. And when I walked out, not only did I know, I already knew God was real, but I knew that he had a purpose that was far beyond my imagination and why I'm sitting here messing up in life. And he was really trying to heal my soul so I could get on my purpose, right? So the only condition was I had to go back through a drug court program that I initially went in and graduated from, but I was finessing the whole program. So I had to go back through it, and I did, and I ended up graduating, and I finished in November of 18. And ever since then, um, that's the same time I got connected with my mentor, Dr. Woods, and I understood purpose. I already knew I had a purpose, but it started getting more clear and more clear and more clear about how I could best serve. And it started with me, right? It always starts with us. A lot of times we want to do a lot of great things for others, but can you do great things for yourself, right? And so that's my little spiel about how it all kind of started. And I started the Fight Club, which is my coaching program. And I did a dry run 2019, just going to different mental health and substance abuse facilities and speaking and volunteering. And then I became a part of Madison County Drug Court as a mentor. And in 2020, I started officially the Fight Club coaching and mentorship program. And I've been going hard ever since.
Yeah, that's good. And so you all may know that I typically, this is not my normal attire for podcasting, but this is one of his hats, and this is also his shirts as well for the Fight Club. And so I wanted to make sure that I represented him well on this episode. So absolutely. So it's a shameless plug. Go to the Fight Club, and that should get you some gear. And the shirt, the hat says. Fight for yourself and help others fight for them. If I believe that is that correct? Fight for yourself.
Yeah, fight for your lives and help others fight for theirs. And the reason he has a smile on his hat is because I believe that we're not fighting for victory, we're fighting from a place of victory. And when you're fighting from that place, you can fight with a smile, right? We already won. It's just you just got to work. We already won. You just got to show up, right? So we can fight with a smile.
Love it. So let's talk about this because you mentioned the importance of unpacking, and so you said you started meeting with your mentor and you started unpacking, and there's some steps. You talk about your program. So talk to me about what are the things that I need to unpack, and what are are there any steps that I can go through to help me unpack?
Yeah. So like we did at the Let's Unpack event. This was year number 2 of our Let's Unpack event, and it was a 2-day event this year. And day 1 we dealt with the past to the present, and then day 2 we dealt with the present to the future. And so dealing with the past, we have an exercise called Origins, and this exercise is simply this: it's the who, what, when, where, why, and how to our own story, our own traumas, our own hurts, heartbreaks. And a lot of times, what I found out in life that the number one coping mechanism to pain, it's not drugs or alcohol or sex. It's nonchalance. And what that looks like is it's when we shut down because we don't know, it's not, we don't know exactly how to go about what we're dealing with. And so one of the definitions of nonchalance is indifference. That simply means I don't care, right? And what we don't care about, we don't cultivate. So when I stop caring, then what happens in life is I stop communicating. And when I stop communicating, I literally experience something called rested development. I literally stop growing when I stop communicating. So the origins exercise is to bring attention to who may have hurt you, when did it happen, why did it happen, how did it happen, how did it affect you? And, you know, a lot of times we just go through life and we never really address certain things that take place. And what we find out is that when we run away from our pains, what we run from has a tendency to chase after us. And so until you deal with it, you will run from it. And also, we do another exercise after the origins and we find out, did you run or did you fight? So what nonchalant looks like is I run within. When I can't escape, say the pain that I may be going through, I can't escape the environment that it may be happening. I can learn how to run within and shut down. And the other definition of nonchalance is mediocre. And what begins to happen is the process in life, we begin to slow down our growth. And no matter how talented, how good looking you are, how much ability you have, what's on the inside of you begins to affect what's on the outside of you. And you see a lot of people that are talented stuck in life because they've never processed and dealt with things that happened to their life. And I believe this, that how you respond to what happens to you can be just as detrimental as what happened to you. And you'll be 100% responsible for how you navigate your life. It's nobody else's responsibility of how you process and navigate your life. And a lot of times we think it's somebody else's fault. And so we think people should accommodate us because of what happened to us. But life don't work that way. Sometimes life ain't fair. And when you move on in life, you'll be mad at one person and taking it out on other people, right? So that's some of the exercises that we start off dealing with the past and working our way up to the present. And what's your current giants that you're facing? What are the things that you ran to running away from your pain? Oftentimes, those create devotions in our life that are unhealthy. And it could be the idea, of people, place, or thing. It could be idea of what I'm thinking or my ideas that got shaped in what I ran to. So me personally, I started rapping, right? It was gangster rap, it was drugs, it was crime. That's what I ran to that running away from my pain. But that lifestyle was causing a lot of problems in my life. Right? It's causing me to get involved in a lot of trouble, and a lot of times we get these alter egos. I call it a survival personality that's developed. And so, if you think about your favorite rappers, a lot of times that's just their survival personality that they're modeling, and then we end up modeling their behavior, and now we're following after their life, and we're getting in the same trouble that they rapping about. That's my story, anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And so you talked about your past and how it impacts the present, and then what you run away from, and then what you run to, and being able to identify those things and call them what they are. Because a lot of times we can live in a place of like unawareness. We're not aware of the fact that we ran to this very thing. We ran to this vice, or we ran to people, places, things that you mentioned. And so now that we go through this process and our process of unpacking, identifying, the root causes of the situations and the challenges that we're facing or experiencing, like what is the in your personal experience, what is the benefit? Like, what do you see happening in the lives of people once they start this process of unpacking?
For one, it causes them to begin to have an identity that's not attached to their pain. Sometimes our identities are attached to things in our past, and if the past is still present, meaning your life is still affected by things that happened in the past, then you're stuck in the past, to be honest with you. And your identity is shaped around some kind of event that's taken place, and it's connected there. And until you resolve it there, you don't have the permission to move on. Like, I really believe God does not allow us to move on in life until we resolve things that need to be resolved. Like, he's like, there's like a rite of passage. Like, okay, once you settle this, now we can move on with life, right? That's why if we don't settle these issues in the past, we end up dating the same type of people. We end up being attracted to the same type of person. What is it? It's a magnet that's connected to it's basically a trauma bond, right? It's a magnet connected to my past, and because I'm so familiar with that, I keep attracting that. I have this saying that you don't get what you want in life, you get who you are in life. And so, using that, helping these clients that I have and people that actually been through the program, they begin to, for the first time, entertain the idea of what an identity is outside of what happened to me, outside of the pain that I experienced. I have these concepts. I'll just explain them real quick, which is identity, mentality, ability, reality, destiny, and legacy. And so, identity, when we begin to shape our identity based on who God called us to be and based on what we desire in life, right? We grow into the person we want to be. That identity has to be reinforced with a mentality that's not connected to our pain, so to say. It's not in survival, right? And you can re-educate yourself through reading, through, um, research and finding out different things that help you along your own process. Everybody has a different process, but you can begin to shape a mentality for your future instead of hold on to the mentality you had in your past. And what that does is that begins to enhance your ability to affect change. And once you begin to work towards on a consistent basis, day by day, what begins to happen is you start creating a reality that you actually want to live in and not escape. And that reality will create a destiny that you will live out, which will create a legacy that you'll leave behind. Right. And so that's kind of the path that we start working on. And some of the people that actually spoke at the event is some people I got a chance to work with. They had been in my 8 or 12 week program. And man, they had to confront some ideas, some limited beliefs about themselves, about what their value, what they could accomplish. And as they did this, what they begin to experience is life past the pain. But here goes the thing. What I encourage them is don't hide your pain or don't waste your pain by hiding your scars, right? Like, our pain has purpose for somebody else. And when we hide the pain, or when we try to hide the scars rather, we begin to waste our pain. And so, one thing I love about God is that even though he forgives us, he gives us a clean slate. He heals our wounds. He don't remove the wounds, he heals them. So the scar is just a wound that's been healed. And he'll allow the scars to remain because that's the testament of our growth.
No, that's real good. No, it definitely is. And so you said a lot there about the process that they go through, them being able to uh, really identify, um, like, develop what their ability is so that they're able to create a reality that allows for them to leave a legacy. And so, those are the benefits of going through this unpacking process. But not everybody decides to unpack. You talked about people that live the same, year over and over again, grow in age, but don't yet grow in maturity or don't yet grow in their responsibilities. People that trauma bonds to where they continue to date in, like, cyclically. It's like same type of person over and over again. So what happens to us, like, if we decide not to unpack? Because these are success stories, but we see many people that live out their lives, and maybe we don't understand that it's not unpacking. Maybe they're a quote unquote successful business owner. Maybe they're an educator. Maybe they're an administrator, and life looks good, but they still have not unpacked. Why should I go through this process, or what could be the negative effects if I decide not to unpack?
When we run from pain, we run towards something else. In marketing, they say you're either leading a person away from pain or leading them towards pleasure, right? And we talked about a little bit at Let's Unpack. One of the ideas would be, say, I'm fat, right? And you're trying to pitch me a coaching program, a health fitness program. And so I begin to shape or your mind around the benefits of looking good on the beach and all the oohs and ahs you'll get once you're fit, right? How you can play with your kids without getting tired now, how they can look up to you because you started a goal and finished it. And what I'm doing is I'm leading you away from the pains of being overweight and leading you towards the pleasures of the benefits, right? So a lot of people, they run to these three major things, and it's either appearance, satisfaction, or achievement. And what that looks like is once I look like I have become. This is the idea of people not unpacking. They're trying to work out their own processes. So they're trying to enhance their outward exterior, right? They're trying to beautify themselves, get more muscles, look more handsome. And so what that looks like from the from the regular eye, what that looks like is, man, they look good. They must got it all together, right? But from the perspective of somebody who's helped people unpack, they're insecure and they're trying to use their appearance to mask their insecurity. That's why you see guys with all the tattoos all over the place with money falling out their pockets. They got to have all the jewelry on. They got to have the latest clothes on, or women with, you know, the latest outfit on, or their chest all the way out, booty hanging out. Why are you going to such extremes to be noticed? It's because there's something internally that they haven't resolved yet about their value and worth. And so they're trying to gain it externally, appearance or satisfaction. Whereas my whole life is wrapped around me satisfying my flesh, or me satisfying some type of appetites that started in the times of my pain. Mine was drugs, right? And hustling. Like it was a marriage. I used to smoke every day. I smoke weed every day. Why? Because I'm keeping myself in the fog. Because when I'm sober, I have to think about the complexities of life. Got to think about the past, and I got to think about the unresolved issues. I got to think about the regrets and the people that I've hurt and the hearts that I've broken. So I try to keep myself satisfied consistently all the time. And what you have is that you have people that'll begin to be so overly stimulated that nothing normal satisfies any longer. One woman won't do it no more. I got to have five women. Sex once a day or once a week won't work. I got to have it all the time with everybody I meet. I got to use my sex or my satisfaction as a weapon to draw people in to connect with me, right? I got to use that some kind of way. So I use my attraction. I use um, this desire, this appetite to draw, and it connects me to people, and it creates what I call situationships. And what those situationships look like is that you end up connecting with people that have something in common. And so, like, if this was weed and we both smoke, then that's what connected us, right? And how do you know it's a situationship? If you take away the thing that's in common, the relationship will just dissolve, right? And so you have appearance, you have satisfaction, and last but not least, and this is the tricky one, you have accomplishment. And a lot of times people running away from pain, they run towards what they feel like will give them the best odds in life. So they go get the degrees, they go to the military, they go do this, that, or the third, and they're living for the approval of others. And they're using their accomplishments in order to satisfy this hurt within, and it never does. And so you can think about people who've made it to the NFL, made it to the league, or made it to the NBA. They finally made it, but they're on the inside. They finally got here to the place where people are applauding them, and they're still empty on the inside. They're still broken. And it begins to show by their lifestyle, it begins to show by their attitude towards life, the pessimism. It begins to show towards them not being able to have a long standing relationship. Like, I can't deal with people on a consistent basis around me because they're really trying to protect their heart. and they're living it out. They're living out the idea of success through their achievements. You see it all the time. And so I threw out these because it's actually biblical. It's called the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. But I just call it appearance, satisfaction, and achievement. And you see it every day. And when you try to live an external life and neglect the internal things, they will rise to the surface at some point. And I just thank God that rock bottom is actually the place where you build foundation, right? The Bible says you got to build your house on a rock, and that's actually rock bottom. And a lot of times we're avoiding rock bottom like the plague. We're doing everything in our life to scramble just to avoid hitting rock bottom because we don't want to experience the embarrassment or the shame of being there. But that's the actual place that you build a strong life that can withstand the test of times.
And I love that because so like as we're unpacking is a place where you go to rock bottom. You go to the root. You don't go to the the fruit of what you are experiencing, whether positive or negative. You go down to to the roots and uproot them or establish some better ones. And so, but that's the bottom. That is the foundation that we're building upon. And so when we don't go through this process of unpacking, we can have a faulty and foundation. And I don't know if anybody's in the ever built a home or have bought a home. A foundation is not a good thing to where you want some cracks in it, right? And so it's good for us to go to that rock bottom place for us to recognize where we can build upon and where we can grow in life altogether. And so, man, it was a great experience for me. And so I wanted to give you the opportunity just to talk about the unpacking process, the benefits, the things that we should be doing, but also kind of some of the things that can happen if we don't take the time to go through this process. And so you mentioned something though, and I'm very intrigued by this. I want us to dive into this really quickly. Pause and blank. What in the world? Because I'm like, talk to us about what does that even mean?
Pause and blank. All right. A couple of years ago, I was um, praying and complaining about my wife. Okay. Just to be honest, just praying and complaining. And God told me a few different things, shared with me a few different things that kind of changed my perspective about life. And the first thing he said was that when you complain about someone or something, your dissatisfaction in it will never allow it to exist. Meaning you have an idea about what it should be, and so you can't accept what it is, right? And he basically shared with me, I didn't do you like that, right? I had some dissatisfaction about how you were living, but I didn't reject you as a result. So you can't improve upon things until you can accept things, right? So that's the first part. The second part is the pause and blank. And the pause was that oftentimes when we complain, we want better, suitable results now. Well, I want better, suitable results now. So I'm complaining about what's not yet. And what he showed me is that in his time frame, in his seasons, we have to learn how to be at pause, not in tomorrow, not in yesterday, but in our today, right? And have to learn how to be okay with that. A lot of times we live in tomorrow, and that's how anxiety creeps up on us. We're so anxious about things that we're trying to control that are uncontrollable. It's not even here yet. Well, depression comes from a fixation on things of the past that we can no longer control. That's where regret comes from. That's where sorrow comes from, right? So, what he was showing me is that you have to be okay with being present in your today and being paused and blank. Pause until I tell you to move, you stay put, and I'll work out the timings to move you. Blank is neutral, and blank is not coming up with my own idea of what should be. but learning how to be okay with what is. All right. Being blank, not having the answer. A lot of times we complain when we feel like we have the solution or answer for a person's problem or even our own. And now we're frustrated when the results don't look like what I got in my head. Right. And so I can't accept what could be because I can't accept what is. So learning how to be blank is not filling in the blank. And what he showed me is that he is in control of filling in the blank. Just do what you know to do. Be okay with where you are in the present. Don't get super fixated on tomorrow. Don't get fixated on yesterday. I heard this saying a long time ago that Jesus died between two thieves, yesterday and tomorrow. Right? And I was like, wow, okay. So that neutral and blank, that pause, that blank, it really helped me to stay in today and appreciate and have gratitude for my today. Not saying I'm not working towards better results tomorrow, but all you have is your today. And as you use your today, and making the best decisions you can do today, what it will actually do is it will create better scenarios for tomorrow.
And I have one more as well that I would love for you to dive into as well. You often hear people talk about it's okay to not be okay. And when you said this, you're like, learn it, it's okay to be okay. And so help us understand, what do you mean by that, by the terminology, it's okay to be okay? Talk to me.
I believe our culture is fixated on trauma. And I mean, rightfully so. There's a lot of things that happen to us. But when I say it's okay to be okay, it's okay to live but not be a victim to life, right? I can be okay. As long as I believe that I'm a victim in the story, not only can I develop an entitlement mentality where now things can't be suitable because I believe somebody owes me for the damages, right? When I live with that entitlement mentality because of what happened to me, I'm expecting people to happen, things to happen for me. And I will never carry my own weight. Personally, I believe that um, when we begin to be responsible, responsibility creates respect. Accountability and responsibility create respect. So I have to be accountable to someone and responsible for something. And that creates respect. Respect creates authority, where now I can control things in a sense, or things can be entrusted to me. And then authority produces honor, where now people are celebrating. You have the difference of award and reward. Award come from people when they acknowledge your growth or acknowledge you doing something well, but rewards come from God. And sometimes God wants to reward us that has nothing to do with award, if that makes sense. And the beginning of this process, I have to learn that there's a reason for what I've been through, and I'm okay. There's a reason that I've been through these pains. There's a reason that I'm where I am today, and I have to learn how to be okay. I have to learn how to accept it. I can't change anything that I can't accept, right? And I'll just be frustrated and mad at everybody as long as I'm pointing the fingers and blaming everybody. Um, Sometimes the people that hurt you are not going to apologize. They're not going to make things better in the future. They're not going to come to your aid. I told the story at Let's Unpack about my dad, how he was not really as present as I would have liked to be. And I felt like I had a lot of talents growing up, but I didn't get a chance to experience playing football or basketball, or any of these things because my parental situation. So I had to kind of watch from the sidelines. It made me mad at life. So when I got incarcerated, I decided to forgive my parents. And when I did so, I started writing them letters and different things. And once I got out, which was 5 years later, one day I was at my pop's crib. I stayed there for about a month or two. One day I was in the kitchen looking for something, and I opened one of the drawers. And when I opened the drawer up, I seen all the letters I wrote, but they had never been opened, right? And it was hurtful. That hurt me. Like, dang, you didn't even love me enough to consider what I was thinking or want to read what I was writing. But I had to realize that he was in a place of hurt, maybe even regret, that he couldn't force himself to read. He couldn't force himself to face the reality of where his son was, right? So that was his process. And I could be mad forever at that, but I decided that, you know what? I am okay. This may hurt. I don't like these conditions. I don't like, where I'm at in life today, but I can improve it if I can't accept it. Right. So it's okay to be okay, y'all.
I like things that are a little play on words, but also from a little different perspective, and that's the reason why I wanted you to have the opportunity to be able to share, a little bit about that. And so, man, this has been great, man. I'm um, since then I've been unpacking. My wife and I, we've been unpacking some things as well, and I think it's something that we all need to do for us to not be heavy with things that we do not have to carry anymore. And so, one of the things that we do at the end of our episode, I wish we had more time, because there are things that I would like to dive deeper into, but that may set us up for a part two or something. We'll see what we can make happen. But we end with this thing called Better Days Ahead. It's an opportunity for our guests to share, whether it's a mantra, whether it's a quote, anything that you have to encourage them that everything is going to be all right. And so for our segment, Better Days Ahead, do you have anything that you would like to share for the people?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what I ran and grabbed something. So this is my latest book. I actually released this at Let's Unpack a couple of weeks ago. It's called Emotional Currency, and it's the secrets to connect with people and wealth. All right. The currency of emotion brings wealth to life. And Maya Angelou had this quote. She said, "People will forget what you say, people will forget what you do, but they'll never forget how you make them feel." I honestly believe that our lives and all our decisions that we make are transactions. And we can either be a credit to somebody's account or a debt to somebody's account. My encouragement and what I want to leave you with is pay it forward. Be a credit to somebody's account. If people never forget how you make them feel, you can have the goal of making people wealthy by how you make them feel, right? It's just love, right? Um, and so I want to leave you with that you are in charge of creating the wealth in your life by how you make people feel.
I love it. I love it. You are in charge of the wealth that you create in people's life by the way that you make them feel. So that's what we like to leave with. I know, right? It definitely was. And so we leave our guests and we end our episodes with just that. Be a credit to people's life. Make sure that you continue to add value. Make sure you continue to pay it forward. Even today, tomorrow, for the rest of our lives, continue to pay it forward. This is another segment of the Mindset on Resilience podcast. Until next time.